Yeah. Roxanne and I got some cool shoes.
Oh yeah, the Woe
They're,
shoes, walking
they're
on
super
air.
comfy.
Yeah, good man, good. I'm glad you
So,
guys like them.
yeah, so you recently launched this shoe brand, but prior to that, I remember you got like your MBA in marketing, and then you left Florida State, you joined a company or something, and then you were just kind of like, I could do this, or something along those lines, and that's like what launched your entrepreneurial journey a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I really got my entrepreneurial journey started in college at Florida State. I think it was like my senior year, my super senior year, when I was getting my, master's in marketing or whatnot. And I was a part of the Zimmerman agency. It was a PR agency in Tallahassee, and I think I got paid $7.70 an hour. And the owner, Carrie, she was like driving a 911 to work, Porsche 911, and I remember famously she yelled at one of the interns because they didn't put enough ice in her cup, and I thought, okay, I'm on the wrong side of the table here. So that's when I decided to start looking into entrepreneurship. Um, I had a friend that kind of coached me a little bit on how to start a business. He gave me really good advice when I asked him how to start a business. He said, "I don't know, Google it." And so I did. I Googled it, and then I bought a couple books, and then I started a marketing agency out of college called Gray Umbrella Marketing, and we were just doing like anything for everyone. Like we were making websites for dog sitting businesses. Um, we would try to pitch banks. We did like marketing for alternative credit scoring companies, like a lot of random stuff like that. And then I kind of found my focus and niche in e-commerce and SEO because it was very transparent in how much returns we're able to get a customer. We're able to see here's X amount they paid us and here's X amount that they're getting in money. So I was just gravitated towards e-commerce, and then we scaled that business to a couple, about like 120 people. I merged it with another company called Visiture in 2015, and that was based in Charleston. And then we kind of scaled it over the course of 6 years together. We grew to about 130 people, and then we're acquired in 2021 by W Promote. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the genesis. I've always been around e-commerce, always really liked companies selling products online. I've always just bought online too. I don't shop in store. I think it's weird. My wife likes to shop in store because you get so limited, products you can buy because there's only so much inventory they can hold at a location, and so many fewer, shoe options, so many different apparel options. And it never really made a whole lot of sense to me why you would buy in store versus online. So yeah, always been passionate about online, passionate about marketing online. And then, our business was acquired in 2021. And I was thinking, what's next for my life? I had an Oculus on my head one day, and I thought, man, why can't people like try on clothes before they buy using Oculus? And so I went down a really long rabbit hole on, how do you do virtual try on? How can you try on dresses on Oculus and all these different devices? And basically hired a couple developers I found online on Upwork, and we just started coding out virtual try on. Yeah, is this helpful? Did you want me to segue into anything in the background, or should I just continue going down the real lift side?
No, this is cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we started the company called Real Lift, and we started trying to make virtual try-on solutions. This was like early 2022, and we ran into a huge challenge where we couldn't put a 3D model on a 2D image of a person. So like all pictures are like flat. Like this is flat, obviously.
Yeah.
But we were taking a 3D model that's 3D and we're trying to apply it to a 2D image, and it just didn't work. And we basically kind of abandoned that project after probably a year of really trying to code it out. And then we were trying to figure out how to do virtual try on, and we were like, well, if we knew the measurements of a person, we could extrapolate the 3D model onto the 2D image. We knew the measurements of them. And that's when we're like, oh, well, if we do that, why don't we just tell them what size to buy? Because that's a bigger use case. And so that's when we pivoted towards solving sizing online. So, if you're buying a dress online, you don't know if you need the smaller medium. we had an app, and you would spin in your mobile phone, and it would measure your body and tell you what dress size to buy. So really helpful for you, Josh. If you ever need to buy dresses. And
Could
that
always
was
use a good dress.
yeah, that was a fun little ride we had. We probably spent a year developing and pitching and go to market, probably about a year and a half. Like the sizing application, we actually won the Levi Strauss's hackathon to solve sizing and fit. We got flown to San Francisco. Levi's paid for all of our flights, all of our hotel rooms for our team of 8. We all got to go to Levi's HQ. They took us on a tour throughout all their buildings. They had us go to the very top of the building, and we got to pitch their entire executive team our solution, the real size solution. The problem is it didn't really work. It was kind of like worked half the time. I was really nervous about it, and we had to pitch their entire C-suite. So I met like Chip Berg at the time. He was their CEO, their COO, CFO, kind of you name it. Everyone was there, and we got 20 minutes to pitch our solution. They liked it, but their problem was, we just don't really care about returns. Like they're like, it doesn't really cost us a lot of money, and it's annoying for the consumer, but we really don't really care. We don't really sell a lot online. And I thought that was interesting that these consumer companies just honestly don't care. Like they're like, it's not our problem. And that's kind of when we pivoted towards footwear because there's actually higher returns in footwear. And the
Mm.
problem is bigger because the shoes weigh more than a shirt. So like a jean, like it doesn't really cost so much to ship back and forth. But like a pair of shoes, especially like a work boot, that costs a lot of money to go back and forth between locations. So we decided to go into footwear. And then we did a sizing solution, and we have a really cool app that basically scans both your feet with a card in the middle, and it'll tell you how big your foot is. And then we license that technology to other shoe brands and help them sell more shoes online. It's worked well, but what we found there is also none of these brands care about returns. They don't care about you returning a product or not. In fact, they're kind of now getting more to the level of making everyone pay for the returns. And because of online acquisition costs with like Meta and Google, they don't really want to sell online anymore. They rather just sell wholesale. They want you to go to a physical retail store. They'd rather give away half their margin. So a little bit about the shoe business. Like if like say like New Balance, they sell $150 sneaker. They pay some Chinese factory to make basically 100,000 of them for $22. Like they're just cheapo shoes. Yeah, they
Yeah.
look cool, but just cheap foam, cheap everything, cheap insole. And so you're basically paying like literally $127 of just erroneous stuff. Basically, you're paying for $150, for a $20 shoe. And so, I just thought that was interesting. And New Balance was basically like we'd rather sell it to wholesale for $70 and try to sell it online for $150 and deal with returns and deal with acquisition costs. So we learned a lot of that, and that was interesting. And I really thought that footwear was kind of stuck. Like it just seemed like a business model where they couldn't really sell online because the sizing issues were really tough. And consumers, didn't want to buy online either, and they didn't want to sell online. And I thought there was a huge opportunity to kind of bridge the gap between online and physical retail store. And that's when we decided to kind of pivot. And instead of trying to sell our sizing solution to a bunch of brands that, quite frankly, don't care about a crazy bad problem, let's just go build our own shoe company. And that's where we came out with Walking on Air. We started engineering it, gosh, April last year.
Mm.
And really my kind of thought was like, what if we could like do custom fit shoes, no shoe sizes, you just scan your feet and we just ship you a shoe, and we do it in like 2 days. So that's kind of like our North Star in Genesis. And instead of having shoes that sit in a warehouse, like a lot of times like New Balance and Brooks and these other brands, they'll buy shoes and they'll start engineer it a year and a half before it gets delivered to your doorstep. So it gets designed, engineered, manufactured, sits in a warehouse, and then probably by that time it's already been shipped to two other people's houses that have worn it, didn't like it, shipped it back to Brooks, and then it goes to you. So there's like 6 touch points that it takes between you by be, by the before them making the shoe until you getting to your doorstep. And we thought that was kind of weird and odd and stupid, to be honest with you. Like 20% of what we're paying for shoes is actual shoe, and then there's a huge latency between receiving it and having other people probably wearing your shoe, which is kind of nasty. You know, I thought there could be a whole lot better way. So we're trying to flip the entire script of footwear, and instead of shipping, shoes, hope it fits, like we're writing your name on the shoe, we're making it for you, and there really are no returns. And of course, like we'll let anyone return the product that doesn't fit, we'll remake it, and we can recycle the shoe. And we know that there's going to be those challenges, but we're trying to just do a whole different way to buy shoes online. And so it's been super exciting so far. We just started advertising a month and a half ago. Josh was one of our first wear testers.
Yeah.
And we've been making improvements to it, and eventually we want to start building tennis shoes and more just kind of everyday lifestyle shoes outside of just leather goods. So
Yeah. I mean,
hopefully that was
the shoes
yeah,
are really like the boots. The boots are cool. They're stylish. They kind of remind, like the white and black is like I see like Viha has like the same colors, and like obviously like Adidas are real
yeah,
clean. And then I like the black with the white, and it looks really cool. Yeah, I mean with shoes, like I have golf shoes that I bought probably like 5 years ago from
hmm
FootJoy, and then I just rip out the insole and like buy a new insole and just like
yeah,
replace it in order to actually make it like fit well. But then you have to like get the shoe, make sure it fits, buy a new insole, change the insole, and go through the whole thing. So essentially what you're doing is eliminating all of that, so that way the shoe shows up, you pull it out, you put it on your foot, break it in, and it's ready to go.
yeah. The majority of the reason you're doing that is because literally the insoles that are in 90% of shoes, 95% of shoes are made out of PU foam. And we use it too. We use like a top layer because it's really squishy and soft. It wears out within like a month.
Yeah.
And that's why the shoe gets kind of flat and tough because the PU foam gets worn out. The PU foam costs like 80 cents. It's like the cheapest part of a shoe, honestly, you know? And the insole is generally pretty cheap. Um, we use cork and leather also in our insole, which costs a lot of money. So our insoles cost like 7 or 8 times, higher price than a Pew foam insole is. You know, um, but yeah, it's super interesting. It's funny. Like it's the minor improvements can be made just for marginal amount of money. In footwear.
Yeah, because they like make shoes expensive enough where there's huge margins, but not so expensive where someone's not going to go buy like a new pair every X amount of months versus like back in the day, you had like one nice pair of shoes and those shoes had to last. That's why like you go through an airport and you see all these empty like shoe shine booths that people used to go to when they had like their really nice shoes that would last like 20, 30
Yeah,
years. So
yeah,
with the walking
exactly.
on air shoes, like how much of a difference are they in like the quality, the comfort, how much long they last versus like someone going to buy like $100 Nikes that the insoles are going to wear out within a month?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the Nike shoes, it probably cost them probably about like with their scale, like 23, $25, maybe $30 for their more expensive ones. Landed to someone's doorstep, it cost us $97 all in, with all of our stuff in there, like from freight, shipping, everything. So Nike's probably about like 50, 45, $50, I'd say, to someone's doorstep. So we're kind of like more like basically what we did is we kind of made like a $350 dress shoe, designer dress shoe for like 185 bucks, because we cut out so much of the erroneous stuff in there, such as, basically like a physical retail store, a retailer, we're basically using the nicest leather. We're using cork insoles that Birkenstock is pretty famous for. We use the nylon shanks. We basically just use the best materials we possibly could of footwear because we have no real cost outside of basically acquiring a customer and then making a shoe. And eventually, like, we're going to have to get our costs down with scale and, like, grow up and, probably pay someone some money to, like, run the company, probably pay employees. But right now, it's basically just all costs are just cost of making the shoe and cost of getting someone to buy the shoe, really. And really we're just using the best materials we possibly can, to make the best high quality product as well, for a customer.
Yeah, so like finding out like the shoe business and everything that's going on in it, how did you determine like which materials to use, which ones not to use in
Yeah,
terms of like developing this? Because I'm sure there was a thousand experiments that you had to do in order to figure
yeah.
it out.
Yeah, well, I would say it was 1,000 experiments. So I have two co-founders. One is a stealth co-founder because he's the head of product for a pretty big footwear company, and he's been amazing to help us with it. He meets with us like once a week, and he really developed the brainchild behind it. And then our podiatrist doctor, Dr. J, he's very open that he's working with us. We put him everywhere. He helped us a lot with the science behind like the cork insole, the last developments that we've done, and just a lot of the like, you know, kind of materials that we use. So it was kind of like a collaborative effort over about 8 months, finding different factory partners. Thankfully, we found an amazing factory partner in China that we're just huge fans of. I mean, they're so good, so advanced. And, we sampled everywhere from Turkey, Portugal, Dominican Republic. And we thought the best qualities in China. It's kind of crazy. They're just the most highest attention to detail. They have the best equipment. They have the best, I would say just factories that we've seen from advancement capabilities. And we've been really impressed and happy with them. And they've really helped us a lot in developing it too. And also fit testing too. It's been a really kind of joy to work with them. So yeah, lot of just kind of talking development, sending samples back and forth to here. And then we have a really good team with a lot of experience that helped us build it from the ground up.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone on Alibaba and I've had like no issues with like anything that I've gotten from there. And it's like crazy how nice they are. They're like, hey, like, what do you need? Or like you'll say something to them to be like, hey, like, you should do it this way because this way won't work. And they just like know what they're doing, which really shows like how far behind other places are in terms of
Yeah.
manufacturing. Because I know like Mexico's gotten pretty big at manufacturing too.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of interesting places. Obviously, with the shoe industry having tariffs and in place, that made everyone kind of flee China. So China's very open to business now,
Yeah.
and very negotiable. But it's interesting. I think a lot of people really see, especially in my industry, people look at like, well, if it's not made in Italy or Portugal, it's not high quality. And it's funny, I kind of think the complete opposite, really. China just has some of the strongest manufacturing capabilities. And of course, there's what, like 9 billion people in China. There's gonna be tons of bad ones in there,
Yeah.
just as in the US, and I'm sure like Mexico too. They have great and very bad factories. I've talked to a lot of bad Chinese factories, but the one we're working with is amazing. In fact, the main guy there, he's like our age that we worked with. His family owns a EVA foam factory. He studied university in Dusseldorf, Germany. He's got a master's in engineering from Germany. So he's just it's a whole different level of manufacturing capabilities there, which is really interesting. But it's really hard to find the right factories, and Alibaba's definitely very good for that.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm working on like some golf gloves
Oh,
from
cool.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's
making
nice.
sure you find like because like golf gloves are super expensive. It's like $30 for a golf glove or whatever. I'm like, can I go on Alibaba and find the same glove? Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, yeah. I mean, you look at Amazon and Temu and these other sites, like a lot of them are getting pretty okay to good quality products for like a fifth of the cost, because American company will go develop and design it, and then the Chinese company goes and does the same thing and just sells it online, you know?
Yeah, and I mean that's like with your shoe though, it being it so custom, that's not like a concern of yours because of all the tech that you have to have with like you I pulled out my phone, you put the card between your feet and you have to like get it right there and it like scans your foot. When it's going through like that scan process, like what is it looking at with your foot that
Yeah. That's a good
makes it
question.
that custom fit that you can't get like at a retailer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just to build on that too, even if our factory wanted to go sell our shoe online, it would probably be the same price. There's no real savings. We're not making any money on the shoes anyways. So there's not really anything for them to, circumvent us or anything like that. Yeah. So our scan technology, we spent like 2.5 years developing it. It's really cool technology. Basically what we're doing is we're just taking your phone and we're taking pictures of your feet, and then we take 5 photos because people's hands shake. So we figured if we just take five and average them together, we'll get an accurate reading. So that's basically what we do. We take 5 photos, we encrypt them, we cover everything in a 3D mask, and we apply LiDAR to it, which allows us to see how far away your feet are from the ground. It's like applies like a 3D map over your feet. And then we measure your feet using a card inside the wallet. So we have like a card in the middle of your feet, and then we use the card dimensions to measure your feet and make a shoe that fits your feet. And what's great about the card is they're all the same size, so it could be anything in your wallet, like a Costco membership card, Sam's Club card, kind of etc. You know, so it's been a really easy way for us to get someone's measurements. It's
Yeah, that's how
guaranteed.
they discovered where like Osama bin Laden was hiding, based off like the size of his shadow. Because they
Oh
were
yeah,
like
that's
doing
right.
surveillance. Do you ever see like that documentary?
Yeah, Zero Dark 30. Well, not the documentary, but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the movie and the
They
documentary.
called him
Yeah,
like the Walker, and they measured his shadow like based off like his estimated height. And they're like,
yeah.
it's pretty close.
It's crazy, yeah. I mean, we've got an amazing machine learning team here, and I feel like that's like just the future of technology. You need like some data moat, you need some really competitive advantage, and machine learning is very interesting, but very challenging too. It's very hard to find good machine learning experts and data engineers for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you were originally in marketing, helping with websites and things like that. Now you're like in shoes. What is like the biggest overlap, even though they're in like two different industries that you would comment on in terms of like building this versus building what you previously did?
Yeah. I think the biggest, I mean, they're very similar. Like shoes are super subjective. It's whether you like it or not. There's no like right or wrong answer. I could like slippers. I could like this. So it's all kind of relative, you know. I feel like my job is marketing, but also like educating. Like, why is our shoe better? Why would you want a firm cork insole over this? It's better for your feet. You know, things like that. So I think there's a lot of overlap. I think a lot of my past experiences helped me in this role and in the real life side too. You know, I guess my previous role it was a lot more about learning a lot of different industries and different sectors. You know, being in client services, but now it's just focused on one. You know, just one client, the walking on air client. You know, so yeah, it's fun, challenging. And it's definitely fun right now since we just started, but I'm sure I'll get sick of it after a year or two.
Yeah, get bored. And also,
Mhm.
like, you're also a dad now. So, how's that changed how you look at things from a business perspective?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Yeah, you know very well about this too. Yeah, man, being dad's fun, man. It's definitely fun, exciting. I think from a business perspective, though, especially kids are young, it's like the perfect time. Maybe you know this too, or you feel the same way, but I feel like it's the perfect time to really hustle and grind on a business, you know, because you're not really taking a lot of vacations anyways.
Yeah.
And there's something that I always thought was super interesting about my old business partners. They both had kids, but I didn't. But they had this innate like ability to focus in and really hustle hard on business and being an entrepreneur, and we're just really good about time management. And I was very poor at it. There's just times and days I'm like, I don't even want to work today. I'm not even gonna work, you know? And I just didn't care. And it's something about becoming a dad just really makes you focus in on like breadwinning and, hustling and trying to make more money and growing wealth. I don't know, something about it, the day you become a dad. I don't know if you have the same thing on your side, but that's been kind of my experience so far with it is, giving me a big lightning rod of focus, to become a better entrepreneur and get the companies off the ground and make money again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, before we hopped on here, I was like, man, I'm kind of tired. I was like, how much time do I have? I was like, I got 25 minutes. I was like, all right, I can lay down for 18 minutes, take a little power nap, and then jump up, get on here in
Yeah,
time to chat with Ron. So, like, yeah, it's just definitely like, how much can you stretch your time, and figuring out how to manage all of that is really I forgot who it was. It was a comedian. He was like, the way he like explained it was like, having kids is like playing life on like expert mode,
hmm
versus like not having kids is like kind of playing life on easy mode.
yeah. I don't know if I agree with that, but yeah, I think both are challenging, both are hard. But yeah, I mean, I think now that I'm a dad, I look back on it, I think, oh man, I had so much time to do everything, but I don't think I had the motivation, right? The right motivation, I guess, when I was before I was a dad. But now I have a lot of motivation because I'm a dad and I did it, provide for the family and stuff, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Ron. Thanks for hopping on. We'll see everyone next time. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh.